Hey guys, and welcome back to the Basketball Fix podcast. Now, today's episode, if you haven't seen one of these already, which some of you may not have. If you're a Cairns Taipans supporter, you may have not already seen the first two episodes, but we're doing a little bit of a fan Q&A, plus also slightly breaking down what each team has done in the offseason. These are very chilled and, sort of sit back content as well. Not trying to ground break news or anything like that. Let's just more touch on and talk about what each team has done this offseason, potentially what their play styles are going to be, and then answering a few of the fan questions that we do receive over at the Basketball Fix Instagram page as well. If you want to get involved next time, check out at the Basketball Fix podcast on social media. Just follow there as well. We'll post a story. All you got to do is ask a question and we'll answer it on the show, which we will be doing in today's episode as well. Now, this episode is all about the Cairns Taipans, one of the more interesting teams this offseason, the team who hasn't made many moves at all. They've brought back some familiar faces, the likes of guys like Sam Wardenberg, Kyle Adnam, Cody Statman, Kyron Galloway, and Alex Higgins-Teacher, but haven't done a lot more. There's been a lot of maybes with the Cairns Taipans. Maybe they'll be bought out by private ownership. Maybe Isaiah Thomas will sign for them as well, which was never going to happen. Maybe Michael Jordan will return. Shout out Pete Hawley as well. He's going to start throwing some names out. We may as well have a bit of fun there, a bit of tongue-in-cheek with Pete Hawley. But there hasn't been a lot of doing and acting on right now. And I'm a little bit concerned for the Cairns Taipans. And I'm sure yourself, Cairns Taipans fans at home, let me know what your concern level is right now for the team as well, because the preseason started with an absolute bang. It looked like there was going to be private ownership. There was these rumors of Paddy Mills potentially signing with the club or buying the club, whatever way that was going as well. They ultimately fell through as well. There was rumors that Tanner Groves was interested in staying at the club for NBL 26, but he signed since in Japan as well. It just seems like there was a lot of unorganization from the club in a number of reasons as well. Adam Ford, obviously, is a great pillar to build around. Once again, he returns to the club after a lot of people thought he wouldn't return for NBL 26 and beyond. So again, a lot of not much going on and a lot of weird things going on as well from a Cairns Taipan perspective. So I guess what we can talk about right now is who they have signed. And I've written down 3 ticks right now: Sam Wardenberg, Adam Ford, and Alex Higgins-Teacher. Now, Sam Wardenberg, for Taipans fans at home who hasn't seen, he was named to the All-Star 5 over there in Puerto Rico. And there was a pretty cool little list of players. JaVale McGee was one of the more high-profile named in this All-Star 5 in Puerto Rico as well. And, he's had an incredible offseason. He's a guy who I see as taking the next step to becoming one of the best Australian players in the NBL. He's probably already up there. He's probably a top, 10 to 15 local in the league. But I think he's ready to take that top 5 mantle, rustling and sort of rubbing shoulders with guys like Xavier Cooks, for example, Matthew Dellavedova, Chris Goulding, the likes of the top upper echelon players in the NBL. He's that good. Now, what he does obviously so well is he can score, he can rebound, he can defend, and also can play make very good for a big man as well. So he'll probably play the 3 to 4, depending on how the rest of the team sort of fills out. But I'm really excited and bullish on what Sam Wardenberg can achieve in NBL 26. And I'm sure Taipans fans, you are very excited as well. Obviously, signing him to the 1-year deal, is not super pleasing from a Taipans fans perspective. You probably wanted to get him for, the next couple of seasons and everything like that. And the rumours of him going back home to, obviously, the New Zealand Breakers have been one that have been circulating, especially this offseason after the Breakers came out and stated that they want local talent for the foreseeable future. And he's obviously one of the top local talents as well in the NBL. So I'm a little bit concerned. I also mentioned this last year. I think he's a guy in which, he could be one of the players who takes the next step to the NBA. We're seeing Tyrell Harrison absolutely dominate over there at the Summer League. I think Sam Wardenberg has all the tools and characteristics to take his game to the NBA level. We've been on that for a while over here at the Basketball Fix as well. So massive Sam Wardenberg fans, and very, very happy the Taipans were able to get him back to the club for NBL 26. Adam Ford, like I mentioned earlier, a bit of an interesting one. I think he and his return sort of sums up the Taipans off-season this year. It's not necessarily a poor move to bring him back. I think Adam Ford has been the best thing for the Cairns Taipans for, the better part of the last 10 to 15 years. And what he does is he brings stability. He takes a lot of heat. He loves the Cairns community. He fights for the community as well. And I think he's a really good developmental coach as well, which is what the Cairns Taipans have been needing for such a long period of time and have had for such a long period of time under Adam Ford. But we all know that the biggest hamstring for the Cairns Taipans is money. Money and they've never had a lot. They're always the bottom spenders in the NBL. They sometimes sit under the salary cap. They make a small little amount of profit. Community-owned team. We know all the ins and outs of what goes on at the Cairns Taipans. But for fans, it's definitely frustrating because we know the sort of system that the Cairns Taipans run. They'll go 2 or 3 years as a really poor team. They'll then shoot up to the 4th or 5th in the ladder after all their young talent, come together. Guys like Sam Wardenberg and Taron Armstrong and everything like that, who could have been the next build potentially in the next couple of years. And then they get offered big money from other NBL clubs. So they go and play in the NBA or other European leagues around the world as well. And then the Cairns Taipans fall back down because they can't obviously match the money, and obviously can't also match the money and buy other import players as well to bring the rest of the team up. So there's just been this constant cycle for a long period of time. And that's where when all these rumors about, potential ownership change and buying of ownership and, the team potentially looking to spend lots more money than what they have over recent seasons, it got not only Cairns Taipans fans excited, I think it got everyone excited in the NBL because we're probably seeing, this team now being able to spend $2.5, $3 million and spending over the cap of, $2 million and whatever it is nowadays as well. So, it's disappointing that it fell through. But I just hope from a Cairns Taipans perspective that deal gets done at some stage, whether it's at the end of the season or going into next season as well. It's a bit of an interesting one. I wonder if they're going to look to underspend this year, or do they go fully all in, which has been the big rumor over the past couple of days, NBA Summer League as well, and really try to drive the price up. So when they do look for other owners, they're not getting lowballed as well as a team who's sitting down the bottom end of the ladder. Now, the other one that I was really excited on was Alex Higgins-Titcher. Now, this kid is a guy who he just gives so much to the Cairns Taipans organization. He's a 3-4 player, super athletic, can handle the ball. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the NBL. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Xavier Cooks in younger times. That really good player in transition, can play back down to the basket, probably can shoot a little bit better than Xavier Cooks, to be honest. But the sheer athleticism and raw talent that he possesses needs to be capsulated and just grown on as the seasons go. And, he's obviously been awarded a training camp with the Golden State Warriors, and that's turned into a summer league appearance as well. The sky is the limit for this kid when it comes down to, sheer talent, and just sort of all the characteristics and fundamentals that you need to be an NBA player. So I think there is a chance that he goes and plays NBA basketball at some stage, two-way deal. I don't necessarily think it will be this year. So Cairns Taipans fans really enjoy this year with Alex Higgins-Titcher. I know obviously he's had some adversity with dealing with some injuries and everything like that as well. So, there's a number of things that are at play right now with Alex Higgins-Titcher, but I'm really excited to see what this kid can do and what he can produce in NBL 26. And when we're talking about, must-have re-signings like Sam Wardenberg and Adam Ford, then Alex Higgins-Titcher is well and truly in that conversation as well. So another tick for the Cairns Taipans. Now, a couple of little rumors here. These are sort of stemmed over the last couple of days, even the last week as well. We broke some of these, and with NBL Pleb, massive shout out to him as well. Go and check him out at X, NBL Pleb, and obviously on Instagram as well at NBL Pleb as well. He does an incredible amount of work. The sort of news and the way that he breaks down news. I know there's all this talk about a certain newsbreaker being the number one newsbreaker in Australian basketball. This guy is 100% the best newsbreaker in Australian basketball. I think once you get around what this guy does in terms of just the NBL, not just the NBL, I should say, the NBL, the Japanese B League, European teams, the relationships he has and the connections he has as well, this guy is going to be around for a very, very long time as one of the best newsbreakers in Australia. But he's stated a few guys who the Cairns Taipans have had conversations with and are progressing talks with as well. Now, Junior Madut is the first one. He's a guy who played for Southeast Melbourne Phoenix not too long ago. I believe he had a little stint with the Tasmania Jack Jumpers as well. He is a guy who, is one of those players who shows a little bit of potential. He's spent a little bit of time outside of the NBL and outside of Australia over the last couple of years internationally, and has shown some really good glimpses into what he could be. And he's a young player, and he's one of those guys who reminds me just purely of an Adam Ford player. He's a good defender, pretty good offensive player. He can be developed in a nice way as well. They're looking for a point guard. Potentially he's that guy. I know they had Jackson McCoy last year who, if all things went well with him last year without the charge last year that happened to him, he could have been a guy who was in these steps as well. That Junior could potentially be for the Cairns Taipans. So I think that's a really good piece if they can go and get him in terms of local Australian talent. And Mawot Mag. Now, I haven't done too much of a look into him. Current BYU player. Well, he's just finished his time up in college, I do believe, as well. Another one of those pieces in which the Cairns Taipans will look to, to bring in a young player, develop him, potentially reap the rewards over the next couple of years as well. Really athletic player by the looks of it, and a decent scorer as well. So from a Cairns Taipans perspective, probably not going to play too many minutes this year. Maybe that sort of 9, 10, 11 man on the bench, depending on how all things go. And when you sort of look at, okay, maybe, what they've built and what they can do still over the offseason, he could be an 8, 9, 10 guy maybe as compared to a 9, 10, 11 guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two guys and those talks progress with the Cairns Taipans. Once again, though, I really hope those two do sign with the Cairns Taipans, because the next little part of this is there's probably not too many locals left when we do look at a grand scheme of, high quality Australian players. And, there are a couple, but for the Cairns Taipans, they really need to go out and nail that big fish. They lost Taron Armstrong this offseason. I know a lot of people are saying, is there a chance? Is there a chance? Well, the way Taron's playing in Summer League, the talk with the Golden State Warriors, unfortunately, Taipans fans, I don't think will see him back in the NBL for some time. Maybe late into his 20s or his early 30s, potentially if it's not all going well, he'll be an NBL player again, I do believe. But I think with all things considered, I just don't think he'll be returning to the Taipans. He was also linked to the Jack Jumpers early on in the offseason as well, before he signed the deal with the Golden State Warriors. So I don't think he's going to be returning to the team anytime soon. So it does leave the door open, obviously, for a number of positions. Realistically, when you look at this squad, Sam Wardenberg is probably the only genuine starter on the team right now. Maybe how Alex Higgins-Titcher can start at the 3, but Sam Wardenberg, if you are being completely honest with the team, is the only player right now who you've signed who will be starting for the club game 1 in NBL 26. So, lots of work to do for the Cairns Taipans. They are really committed to obviously staying patient, as a lot of these NBL clubs are this offseason, and really attacking the Summer League. I know Adam Ford supposedly left his coaching role early as well with the Utah Jazz to come home to continue his pursuit of really high quality players to play for the Cairns Taipans. And that'll be one thing that continues on throughout this whole offseason as well. So, I just think it's going to be interesting, because when you look at their team, what have they got to target? And this is the big question, because you're probably looking at they need a genuine point guard and a genuine center. And I think they're the two most important. And then the other piece of it can be a 2-man, depending on who the point guard is, or a 3-man. And you want an athletic wing, I think, as well. So there's a lot of questions about this team. When you look at this team right now, like I mentioned, there's no one who you look at and you go, okay, he's going to start for this team with Sam Wardenberg, even if an import is signed, or, whatever the case is as well. So a lot of work to sort of do here with the Cairns Taipans. And one little question I want to raise is, out of the 3 imports last year, would any of them return? Now, Tanner Groves is signed in Japan in the B League, I believe, so he will not be returning for NBL 26. I'm not too sure on the current status of Rob Edwards, but I highly doubt that he will return for NBL 26. He's a bucket getter, but just didn't really fall into the system with Taron Armstrong last year. But maybe that's the selling point to bring him back for another NBL season, sort of talking about, this is your team now, your environment, it's your way to go as well. So maybe he is a chance of coming back. I'm not 100% certain. But the one that I could see coming back is Pedro Bradshaw. Now, we know Cairns don't like to spend too much money. I think you get this guy as a 3rd import, as that sort of 3, 4-man, potentially come off the bench or start, whatever you want to do. I think he had good patches throughout the season last year, where he showed enough. And I think he could work in the Cairns Taipans budget and also system, coming back into an Adam Ford run system for NBL 26. So maybe he's the one out of all 3 of them that could return. But again, these are just my opinions. I've had no conversations about Pedro Bradshaw as of right now, and haven't heard any rumors about him either. So right now, this is just an absolute opinion piece on the Cairns Taipans. Now, the last little one here, obviously, there's a few little things floated around by our man at the NBL, Pete Hooley, who loves throwing in sometimes some outlandish player names. And obviously, Isaiah Thomas was that name who was linked to the Cairns Taipans. And the Cairns Taipans reached out to him. But as Pete said in his own words, those talks did not progress much from there. Now, that could be anything. We could start saying that the Cairns Taipans have reached out to Michael Jordan, but the talks have progressed nowhere. That's not necessarily a rumor at all. If talks don't advance past the first conversation, not necessarily, they're not really even conversations. They're just really good clickbait sort of captions and titles and things for the NBL to promote and grow as well. And I've got no problem with it. That's what the NBL needs right now. They need those big names. They need those promotional titles. They need those thumbnails. They need those clicks. I can 100% understand where it comes from. But if it wasn't the Cairns Taipans, I'd probably allow it. It's the fact that the Cairns Taipans fans, have been starved of just anything for the past couple of months. Now, all of a sudden, they're thinking they're going to get Isaiah Thomas, and then the next morning it's been ripped out from them, and they are no longer getting Isaiah Thomas, nor are a chance of getting Isaiah Thomas. So, it does make it a little bit frustrating, obviously, for the Cairns Taipans fans, and, it does get a lot of people excited. And I know when some other people, talk about some high-profile players who could potentially be in the NBL, sometimes other people, including guys like Pete and people in the NBL, they jump on their backs very quickly and say, nope, this is not happening. So when they do it, it's always a nice little way to get back at the NBL media team as well. Obviously, all tongue in cheek as well, boys. But yeah, obviously, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Cairns Taipans can do for NBL 26. Looking at sort of their roster right now, potentially what they could do, all the talkings out of the Cairns Taipans. And until I see what they do and the way they want to attack it, I've just got no sort of set expectations right now. The change of ownership was exciting. 3 weeks later, it looked like it broke down. Paddy Mills, exciting, never really materialized. Isaiah Thomas, exciting, never was a chance. So, now it's about trying to lock in, go all in like they've been talking about the organization for a number of weeks now, and finding really high quality talent to contend or at least have a chance and be competitive in NBL 26 as well. But like I mentioned at the start of the episode, if you want to get involved in some fan questions, we have our Instagram page at the Basketball Fix Podcast. We posted a story last night just basically saying, hey, we're reviewing the Cairns Taipans off-season so far. Have you got any questions or anything you'd like to answer, or even just a little statement as well, which we can chuck into the show? Now, the first one is a bit of an interesting one. We copped this a few times, so we'll sort of skip through a couple of them. But yeah, Riles here has asked, there's not really much to review at this point, is there? And that is entirely true, and I can completely understand that as well. But Cairns Taipans fans want to have some content about them, and we know, obviously, this is a team who has a lot of interest, especially in far north Queensland, but it's always got a special place in my heart. I think I absolutely love the Taipans. I'm a Perth boy. Adam Forbes over here in Perth for a number of years. He's an incredible coach and everything as well. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Cairns Taipans. Now, we've got kind of two of the same questions from Snake Pit HQ and Rafe Wright. And they've basically both asked, what was the sort of talkings about, the sort of takeover? And the first one was the takeover rumors the board's way of deflecting pressure? And the second one is, what is happening with the private ownership? So, yeah, you just never know what these things are. And all reports were from Pete Hawley. Again, a reputable person in the NBL, has some good contacts as well, where that, the Cairns Taipans were in talks to sell the team to private ownership. And why they got so many people excited was because money. We can start to look at, bringing some high quality players in, starting to be able to open the checkbook up and be able to go over the salary cap and into the luxury tax and everything like that as well. So when those conversations happened, everyone in the NBL got super excited. Now, is it a way of the board deflecting pressure? I'm not necessarily certain that is the way, because I think Cairns have known for a number of years now that, we're not going to be a contender. And that's just unfortunate. Like, there's probably not too many teams in the NBL who you probably sit there at the start of each season and go, yeah, they're not going to contend. But the Cairns Taipans have been that over the last couple of years. I know we can try to hype up the team and hype up the young talent, but until you put runs on the board and can prove to yourself in the NBL community that you are here to stay, I don't think necessarily, the Cairns Taipans have been that team over the last couple of years. So I'm not sure that it's the board's way of deflecting pressure as per se, but I just genuinely think it was a thing that happened. It fell through in the end, and that's as simple as it is. But for Cairns Taipans fans, you should be excited that that whole thing got as big as it did, because it means that there's some genuine interest in the club and some genuine interest in that potentially happening over the next NBL off-season or maybe the off-season after as well. So I wouldn't sort of say that it's not too far away from happening. There's potential, expansions within the league as well with new teams coming in. So I'd imagine there'd be some sort of a sale over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of years, I should say, if that is to happen as well. So I'm excited for Cairns Taipans fans in the future. Obviously, this offseason, we have no idea as of right now. But again, lots of speculation to talk about from a Cairns Taipans perspective. Next question here. This will be the last one that we answer on today's show. There's a nice, short, sharp, and sweet episodes here. How good can Sam Wardenberg be? Well, we've spoken about it. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say he's going to be an all-NBL first teamer, but I can genuinely see him being that. And it will all come down to how good or how much better can the Cairns Taipans be than expectations? If the Cairns Taipans can fall into being a top 5 team in the NBL next season, again, a very, very long shot, maybe he's a guy who takes the next step into a first teamer. Now, I more see him be a guy who's in that sort of second team conversation. I think he could genuinely be in that. A guy could average 17, 7, and 7, to be completely honest with you. He just does everything so well. And he's played under Adam Ford for such a long period of time now, where those two know what each other needs at each individual moment and how to get each other going as well. So I'm massively excited about the prospect of Sam Wardenberg coming into NBL 26. I think he's going to have an incredible breakout season. I copped a little bit of heat on Bryce Cotton's and Devondrick Walker's show, The Easy Day Show, when I had him over Xavier Cooks in my NBL All-Star game. So I'm a massive fan of Sam Wardenberg. But that will wrap up today's episode. Taipans fans, if you want to get involved, like I said, go and check us out at the Basketball Fix Podcast on Instagram. Comment your thoughts as well on the off-season so far and who the team could get or bring over, or some of your ideas, maybe things you're hearing up there in far North Queensland as well, to make this team, this club, a really, really good contender coming into NBL 26. But this has been the Basketball Fix, and we hope you've gotten your basketball fix.